Gradually more details of the camp came into view. There were roughly a dozen small tents set up only a few meters away from a sheer wall of ice at the mountain's base. Set away from the tents was a roughly constructed shack. Revan noticed a pair of generators hooked up to it, no doubt to provide power and heat, and he guessed it doubled as a meeting room and a supply center for any stores that would suffer if left out in the cold. Several sleds were scattered among the tents, some laden with supplies, others empty. On the far side of the camp were 4 large tarp-covered mounds. Revan's heart sank. As part of the terms of the surrender, he would order the Mandalorians to disassemble their infamous basilisk war droids. Great metal beasts, the Mandalorians often rode into combat, judging by the size of the covered objects, and whatever hints of shape were obscured by the tops. Some of the defeated had chosen to ignore his decree.
"One more step and we paint the snow with your brains,"
a voice shouted out. 4 sentries rose up into view from behind the drifts, 2 on either side of Revan and Canderous. Dressed in heavy clothes of mostly blues, golds, and browns, they were armed with rifles, which they had carefully trained on the interlopers.
"Lay your weapons down and identify yourselves."
The speaker, a male, was the sentry closest to Revan on his left. Out of the corner of his eye, the Jedi could see that Canderous was holding his ground, careful to avoid any sudden movement, but not making any effort to obey the order. Revan decided the smart thing to do would be to follow his lead.
"My name is Canderous of Clan Order,"
the big man shouted.
"And I don't lay down my weapons for anyone."
From the stunned silence, it was clear his name had gotten their attention.
"How do we know that you're really Canderous?"
One of the other sentries demanded. This was also a man's voice, deeper than the first.
"Well, Edric, I could punch you in the face until I straightened out that crooked beak of yours. But we'd probably all freeze to death before I finished."
The sentry barked out a laugh, slung his gun over his shoulder, threw his arms wide, and ran to enclose Canderous in a fierce hug.
"It's good to see you again, brother,"
he shouted. Revan was relieved to see that the other sentries had also lowered their weapons. They came forward to form a tight circle around Canderous as they clasped his hands, slapped him on the back, and offered loud traditional greetings in Mandalore. After a few minutes, the one Canderous had called Edric spoke up again.
"Let's get you and your friend out of the cold,"
he said in Basic.
"Leave your sled. We'll have someone else come get it."
The other 3 sentries stayed at their post as Edric led Revan and Canderous through the camp toward the supply shack in the center. As they passed the tents, heads poked out to see what was happening. Shortly, a small crowd had grown in the newcomers' wake. Revan could hear a buzz of excitement building, but his Mandela was too rusty, and he couldn't pick out what was being said. At the door of the building, Edric stamped his boots clear of snow before going inside. His guests did the same. The first thing Revan noticed was the warmth. His goggles fogged up, and he was only too happy to remove them to get a better view of the surroundings. As he had suspected, the shack served as both supply hut and meeting room. There were 7 or 8 men already inside the building, lounging among the crates and packages, using them as makeshift furniture. In one corner was a massive pile of coats, scarves, and gloves. Edric was already stripping off his cold weather gear and tossing it on a pile. Revan quickly and gratefully followed suit. Canderous didn't have a chance to do the same. The instant he removed his goggles and unzipped his hood to expose his face, he was swarmed. Another round of traditional Mando greetings rose up from the well-wishers, and Revan couldn't help but notice the pure joy on his friends' faces who were reunited with the other members of his clan. One of the things Revan had always admired about the Mandalorians, even as he'd fought them, was their loyalty. The ties that held a clan together went beyond friendship and even family. It was an essential part of the culture, ingrained in them from the day they were born or adopted into the clan. Not wanting to detract for a moment, he stood a respectful distance away. He was just beginning to wonder how much longer the celebratory reception would continue when the door swung open, and a tall, broad-shouldered figure forced its way into the room. The door slammed shut, and everything went silent. Nobody spoke as the figure peeled away the layers of the clothing, revealing the face of an attractive woman. She had olive skin, and her straight, shoulder-length black hair was streaked with purple and red highlights. The high, sharp cheekbones were tattooed with intricate blue swirls. Her eyes were also blue, but so pale they looked like shards of ice. Unlike everyone else they had come across, she didn't rush over to greet Canderous. Instead, she glared at him without saying a word.
Sukaigar Canderous.
It was a common Mandalorian greeting, but something about the way she said it made Revan think the literal translation of the word, "So you are still alive," was closer to her true intent.
Sukaigar. Vila?
He replied softly. She took a step toward him, then snapped her head to the side to stare at Revan. She was old enough to look him in the eye. Without looking back at Canderous, she asked him in Mandoa,
"Do you want me to speak basic so the outsider can understand us?"
"I understand well enough," Revan replied in her native tongue. Vila arched her eyebrow in mild surprise, then turned her attention back to Canderous.
"What are you doing here?"
Is that any way to greet a clan brother?
Canderous asked.
"Are you still my clan brother? You left us after the war. You deserted Clan Ordo to become a mercenary."
There was no clan Ordo after the war.
Canderous snapped back at her.
Tegris was dead. We had no leader. We were scattered, broken, defeated. I was not the only one who left.
"We heard you were working for the Jedi."
Vila said, her voice low and hateful. In the silence that followed, the sentry called Edric spoke up.
Sinfetin.
And there was a general murmur of agreement from the others in the room. The literal translation of the phrase was driven snow, appropriate given the conditions outside. But Revan knew that the true meaning of the phrase was closer to the past is in the past. The Mandalorians believed that once you took up the arms and armor of the clan, your past was irrelevant. Edric was saying that whatever Canderous had done over the past few years was irrelevant now that he had returned. From Vila's expression, it was difficult to tell if she agreed with him, but she let the matter of Canderous' past drop.
"I am the leader of this clan now,"
she insisted.
"I still have a right to know why you're here."
To help Clan Ordo find Mandalore's mask.
Vila tilted her head to the side, as if getting a different angle might help her see whether Canderous was being completely honest with her.
"And what about this outsider?"
she asked, pointing to Revan.
He is my friend, my brother. He will help us in our search.
"Do you have a name, outsider?"
Vila asked.
His name is Avner.
Canderous said, cutting Revan off.
He's a mercenary. We met while I was working for Davik Kang.
"You can't speak for yourself,"
she asked, still focused on Revan.
"I thought you understood Mandoa. Am I going too fast for you?"
"I understand," Revan answered. "You speak well." There was a gasp from the crowd, followed by the sound of stifled, nervous laughter. Revan knew full well the insult he had given. The Mandalorians were warriors. They had nothing but contempt for diplomats and politicians. They valued actions over words, and he would just implied that Vila was all talk.
"Brother Canderous vouched for you so you can stay,"
Vila said through clenched teeth.
"But if you betray us, I will kill you. If your weakness causes one of my people to get hurt, I will kill you. If you slow us down, I will kill you. Is that clear?"
Wait, what was that second one again? Maybe I should write this down. There was another round of stifled laughter. Vila pretended not to hear it as she turned back to Canderous.
"Welcome home, brother,"
she said flatly. She grabbed her wind gear, quickly threw it back on, and left without saying another word. Once she was gone, the others in the room seemed relaxed. Revan motioned to Canderous, calling him over to join him in the corner before he was swallowed up in a crowd of old friends. "Avner," he whispered in Basic. "That's the best name you could come up with."
What's wrong with Avner?
"You just arranged the letters in Revan."
Relax. Nobody out here's going to.
Canderous stopped abruptly as he noticed Edric hempling toward them.
Don't judge Vila too harshly.
The sentry said, misinterpreting the hushed dialogue.
She's a good leader, but she has a temper.
He looked at Revan.
You should remember that the next time you provoke her.
"I just got caught in the middle," Revan protested. "Canderous is the one she's really mad at. I get the sense you two have a history."
You could say that.
The big man admitted.
She's my wife.